Hello guys, this is Sandy and welcome to this video where I attempted to survive 100 days building a horse ranch in Minecraft. How did I do? Well, let's find out. Here we go again. Day 0. For once, I did not spawn in a tree, but instead I was surrounded by snow, my second worst enemy. I hate it. Give me back my tree beginning, please. This is utterly cold and miserable. Wait, that's just my depression. Unknown world means everything is scary. At first, I thought the snow leopard was just that. I made my very first wooden tools and skied across the ice along the river. I tried to head in a direction that seemed to have no snow, mined some cobblestone that was in the middle of the field, almost became dinner to grizzly bears. I thought I could hug them, okay? I got some coal and upgraded to stone tools. Food was of the essence. Sorry, little chicken. I noticed that there was a village in one direction, so I made my way over with the setting sun. I then casually raided the village. I just took some things that I never planned to return. No biggie. Said my greetings to the iron golem. I killed off an enderman. I then went to bed for the first time in this world. Day 1. I grabbed my bed and headed south, back to around where I'd spawned. Some were ice skiing, a small boat trip, with a quick depot stop getting some pumpkins and killing some sheep. I later found myself on top of the highlands, where I found a single exposed iron. Yay! I killed some roaming cows at the top to get some leather to be able to craft the backpack. I low-key was pondering of having my horse ranch in the Highland Mountains, but I quickly threw away the idea when I realized how steep the hills were. I would need an elevator system for that. The hunt for the plains continued. There was no luck though. I dug my way into the mountains in hope of gaining some resources throughout the night. I then made my very first shield with a single iron I had found earlier. After reaching the bottom of the open space, I managed to get my sweet iron. Day 2. I smelted the iron I had gotten so far and made myself my very first iron pick. I then crafted a saddle, since I figured it would be needed if I found a horse friend along the way. As I tried to make my way up, I realized that a skeleton was not only stuck in the web, but it also had the height advantage and I felt so small. I still won though. Ha! Low ground champion. I saw on the minimap that there was a zombie that had an iron helmet on. I thought it could maybe have interesting loot, but I didn't expect it to have a backpack, which it dropped for me after I ended his life. I did not find anything else, so I decided to start mining my way out. I poked my little head outside and saw it was night, so I went straight to bed. Day 3. I crawled out of my hole, dashing away from the creepers in haste. And almost got jumped by a crocodile. Alligator? As a crocodile. What the? What? Tell me, why are there so many things that want to kill me? Yo, you wanted me, huh? That's scary. We're off. After several heart attacks later, I headed towards the open ocean and for some reason, I got terrified. Because of whales. Whoa! I'm sorry! I'm sorry! I didn't mean to jump right in its face. Oh, it's so scary. You just jump! Ah! I hit the whale! Oh, I panicked so hard. It ran in my face. Could you not do that, please? You're scaring me. I feel so bad. If that was a shark, I would have pooped my pants. Most of the things in Minecraft I have thought to be innocent have been vicious. I trust nothing in this game. I gathered a kelp in constant fear of being swallowed whole. especially when I was diving down and it was right in my face. I traveled by boat along the coast and got some whale friends that kept me company. And then I found wolves. Yep, I was extremely happy to have found them so early on again. I asked 3 of them to want to come with me, and I already knew I was going to bring my friends back from the other world with me. We set off and managed to find another village. I was just surprised that there even was anything useful in them for once. I looted everything and my friends had my back as we stayed up most of the night trying to take out mobs. I went to bed after killing off a stalking spider. Day 4. I made myself a bow, hoping to be able to take out a creeper from afar to get some gunpowder. I ended up losing sight of him, so I decided it was best to move on with my life. Of course, after cleaning up my Enderman killing attempt shelter, we then found our future home. It was a plains biome and this place was massive. And there was a reason I wanted it to be this big. Not only because I would need a lot of space for the horses and everything between, because this was a world I wanted to spend time in after 100 days was up. I looked around and honestly had a hard time deciding where I wanted things to be. I saw a lot of animals that lived here naturally, and one of those were horses. I could not have been luckier. There were horses scattered all around me, and I was in horse paradise. And I remembered that the livestock overhaul horses ran away from wolves. Oops. I spent the remaining time of the day to light the place up. I almost got demolished by a skeleton with a backpack and its companions. I then slept under the stars, hopefully for the last time. Day 5. I placed the remaining torches down where I thought I was needed, since some mobs had still managed to spawn last night. I did kill a creeper though, yet I almost failed because of the grass griefing me as usual. I cleared some land to repair from my house. Made an extremely ugly shelter. Yes, this was just temporary. I did not care how it looked. I then cut down spruce trees. Thankfully, I had to manage to get some saplings in one of the villages. Of course, I forgot how much podstool appeared when you made a big tree. I love extra work. Also, the fact that the dogs were right in my face as I wanted to place things was driving me nuts. And then I accidentally bred the wolves together. Oops. Sorry, little one. You were never meant to be in this world. Day 6 greeted me as I was removing my mistakes. I was then struggling with how I wanted the house to be. I sort of wanted it to be like the one I made on my previous 100 days, but I also wanted to be slightly different, if not just bigger. So I placed down some spruce planks for the foundation to sort out my scatterbrain. It all just felt wrong. A trader stopped by and for once I wanted to buy something from him. Glad I got some emeralds from the villagers that I most definitely did not steal. I used my trusted water can to bone meal trees and cut them down and placed as many planks as I possibly could before hitting the hay. Day 7. I did some slight alterations with the placement of the spruce logs. And it was right back to bone mealing and cutting trees, along with the continuation of placing planks. I was starting to think at this point that maybe I made my house too big. I killed off the trader. I then tamed my very first horse, which I was super excited about. I wanted some help for the future, since I knew I would have to run back and forth a lot with my non-existent brain cells. I named this handsome boy Benjamin, at least for now. Spoilers, I did accidentally call him Dominic a few times. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And I don't know how, but another trader spawned in just minutes after I killed the previous one. These guys don't get the message. I spent most of the night swinging at the invisible trader, trying to kill him because he made me into a madman. I managed to start working on the roof in the pouring rain before the day ended. Day 8. I was atop of the world, but I knew nothing at all. I was really struggling with this roof. This is what I get for trying to slightly change things. I also realized that I had dark oak just behind my house. How convenient. After placing down blocks for the walls and the roof, I then wanted to see if I could get an ender pearl. This was something that I had to actively chase, since I needed to be able to craft blaze rods to then make the brewing stand, since I had no luck finding one in a village, but also to turn it into blaze powder, so I would need at least 2, but I needed more than that, since I also want to craft water blocks. The Enderman ended up giving me 1 pearl, so yay, I got something at least. Day 9. Started with cutting down oak trees. I saw that an Enderman was nearby, so I wanted to see if I could take him out. He was a tricky one. He didn't understand their species' concept of teleporting. Eventually, he got the message. But no pearl for me. Sad. I was doing insane parkouring while building the roof frame, but one of my dogs was still following me. Oops. Don't worry, they're fine. I then remembered I got a gold horse armor from a village, so I put it on Benjamin. Gold is definitely his vibe. And I was still struggling with the roof as the rain was pouring down again, which made me slip off the roof and break my legs. Day 10. As I was bone milling trees, the thought crossed me that it was probably best to go mining soon. After a sudden visit from pillagers, I sprinted with Benjamin across the plains casually with an arrow in my head to find some cows so I could get some milk. I don't need any more bad omens, thank you very much. And back to the roof I went. And it was a pain in the bush. It kept feeling wrong. I also had been waiting for this moment. Cue the phantoms. They had lame diving skills. I was wondering when they were going to show up. I am not who I used to be. I don't want to sleep. Day 11. I more or less figured out how I wanted the roof to be, but I also wanted to add something extra to the build. My first attempt was questionable. My second one was more appealing, so I decided to go with this idea instead. Which also made me realize that maybe my roof was not at a good height, so I just had to fix it real quick. And when the roof was done, I went to bed. Day 12. Ha! That's what I thought. Things are never done. Being done is just an illusion or something we want to believe to move on with our lives. I still had to do some adjustments. I filled in the empty gap and laid out where I wanted the windows to be. Also, fixed some more roof errors. I also made some dog treats. These would turn my little wolf friends into dogs. There was 3 girls and 1 boy. And that meant my friends from my other 100 days got to come with me. Luke, Sadie, and Jackie. Like I did the first time, I trained them differently to one another, so they could have different tasks. The 4th new member is an American Akita that I decided to name Rayla. Day 13. After finishing training all the dogs, I went to get some sand by the shoreline so I could get some glass to make windows. I also made stone bricks into stone running bond, which I will use in the future for my stables. I crafted all the windows and put them down where they belonged. Finally made some doors, put up some lanterns, and was considering separating the big open space with a wall. Day 14. I scratched that idea rather quickly. I am more for the open spaces. I did extend the walls out slightly in the end. I then moved everything from the shelter into the house, while trying to figure out where I wanted my workshop items to be. I also placed down my bed in a sad corner for the time being. I wanted to build a loft section, but that would have to wait. The rest of the day was the endless item sorting process. The pain is real. I tore down the old shelter and figured I could use signs to mark in a way where items was from afar. The dead logs I found in the beginning had a sort of stone look to them, so they marked where I would be keeping stone and so forth. Day 15. I kept up the pace with what I was doing the previous day, organizing and writing on the signs. I then remembered I should probably bring my dog friends inside the house. I did have one problem though. I didn't have much food. This would be a struggle for a while, and the dogs only eat certain meats, which I didn't have much of, and which I could not make. I then heard thunder in the distance, and that was my cue to hide under the bed. Day 16. I remembered there was a random farm plot that someone had left behind for who knows how long. I went and gathered the crops that I'd grown, then headed off with Benjamin to find a little entrance to start descending down into the caves. It was a massive one. I regretted not having water with me. One wrong step and it would be more than just my legs getting broken. I got a decent amount of iron, some cantacerite, and coal, but I almost died. I have never, in my Minecraft days, ever been surrounded by so many mobs. I tried to trick some of them to kill each other. I don't know why, but for some reason I have been extremely calm while playing Minecraft and made rational decisions, which is something I did not do in my first 100 days. After the mobs were cleared, I felt my heart beating faster. That sure was an adrenaline rush. I tried to mine what I could spot while lighting the place up as much as possible to make my next visit a bit easier. I climbed back to the surface with the moon shining its light on me. I also saw an interesting cow with pumpkins on it. The livestock overhaul animals never ceases to surprise me. Benjamin and I rode home, and I could not help but adore the lit up area that was our home. At the end of the day, I realized I needed redstone to be able to craft the blaze rods. Thanks, SWEM mod, but also rude. Day 17. I crafted a headpiece to match my armor that I had made at some point. I figured this was the most subtle one, and honestly, the armor that comes with Jet and Elias armors are amazing. I might not look like a horse rancher, but I sure look epic in a simplistic way. I then dived underwater to find some clay to make bricks, along with some gravel and sand to get concrete powder for the fridge. After placing down the stove and a cooking pot, I tried to see if I could make the dogs their food. Yeah, it didn't go well. I then planted some of the crops up on the pre-made section. I wanted to see if they would get stolen or not by the crows. Spoilers! They did. Day 18. I truly felt how big the house was, when I had to run back and forth to my storage space and my workshop area all the time. After getting some food ready, I headed back down into the caves. Killed another enderman with no success. This was my best mining trip yet so far though, I've ever had in this game. I felt so calm, confident, and efficient. I wanted to get as much iron as I could, along with redstone. But I also didn't want to push my luck. A lot of creepers lurked in the depths and zombies crawled in on me from every angle. My awareness was surprisingly good for once. I went so many different paths and I am sure I didn't even cover it all. At the end of the day, I thought it was probably best to head back. But I was enjoying myself so much that I kept pushing it a bit further. Day 19. While walking on the edge, I got sniped by a skeleton. Utterly rude, if I do say so myself. I shockingly enough went out the same way I came in, which is something I usually am not really good at doing because of my bad sense of direction. Benjamin and I got home and I started to smelt all the goodies. I crafted my brewing stand that I sadly couldn't steal from a village. Oh yeah, I also managed to find a single diamond in the caves. Of course, it had to be just one. I thought I should still let you guys know though. I then made the cantacerite potions that would be needed to turn the livestock, aka the vanilla horses, into SWEM ones. I then rode off with Benjamin to where I had marked where I wanted the stable to be. I was struggling where I wanted it to really be. This is the problem with having too much space. I marked it roughly where I thought it would be nice to have, with some dirt, before starting the terraforming process. Day 20. I finished clearing the space and placed down some dirt to block out where I wanted things to be. My original plan was to have 6 stalls and a space for tack, 1 for feed. But I changed it to 4 instead, since it would be way too big. At night, I struggled where I wanted to plant my seeds for the horse feed. This is a big deal to me since I just don't want to be randomly anywhere. I ended up using this temporary space for now. I also placed down some scary carved pumpkins to hopefully fend off the crows. But the plan was to move it and make it into a proper field in the future. Day 21. I started to place down spruce logs for the pillars of the stable, while cutting down a lot of trees and constantly running back and forth between 3 points: the stable build, my tree farming section, and my house. How lovely. I worked on a roof frame as far as I could into the night. Day 22 was similar to 21. Cutting wood, placing blocks, and running like a madman back and forth. Let's just say I was really glad I had Benjamin with me. I placed down the stone running bond at the bottom section of the stable and tried to figure out which stall doors to use. I ended up with these western ones, since I thought they matched the theme. After some more riding to my house and back again, I placed some fences on top of the stone and trimmed it down to make it look a bit more appealing. Day 23. I went to gather some more cobblestone since I was surprisingly out of it. Now that is rare. As I was clearing the corridor section, I was looking into how to make stable doors. These were weird since you had to craft them in the backpack upgrade and not the crafting table. If you did that, you just got a totally different version. It took me a failed attempt to realize. I almost gave up. Glad I didn't. I then made some rubber mats to place in the horse stalls, stone bricks in the corridor, along with putting down the stall doors for the entrance of the stable. Day 24. I finally finished the roof. Does it look terrible? Yeah. Could I have done it better? Most likely not. Also, another rainy day. Really, Minecraft? I then decided to tame the horse that had been around my house for multiple days in a row to take into a stall. With the help from Benjamin, it all went smoothly. And I also got to see how it looked. Note that the SWEM horses are slightly bigger, but it will be fine. I then finished the walls, well, tried to. I was sniped by a skeleton again. Did some alterations to the entrance and killed off a zombie that sneaked up behind me. Day 25. I had finally finished the stable's base structure, but I wanted to implement the idea I had for this place since the beginning. So I cut out the back and made it into an entrance as well. I low-key wanted to try and see if I could use the backfield somehow with the stable. Of course, I wanted to have a lot of pasture fields in the center of the land, but I thought this could be practical. After a couple more trips back and forth, I finished both of the entrances, while Benjamin and his new friend spent some quality time together. I added some fences to my house terrace, while picking flowers to make dye that I would use for different tack boxes, along with other horsey items, while running away from phantoms as I had done multiple times already.
Try to catch me if you can. Na, 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 na.
Day 26. I placed down some fences around the stable, since I wanted the horses to have access to an open space but also have it connected to the stalls. My hope is to have mares and stallions / geldings on separate sides. I also want to build a big pasture just below the stable. Now, since I have an open door design on the, whole place, I figure it would be smartest to sort of have a gate to stop not only the horses to leave, but also mobs from getting in. I terraformed some part of the land to be able to have the fences be even on both sides, and of course, phantoms wanted to yank me away from work. It's funny. They spawn in because we have sleep loss, but I would not be able to sleep if I saw that dive at me. Day 27. I had finished placing down most of the fences on the upper level, and it was time to tackle the area below the stable. Also, I am a person who likes to be prepared for the future. This is why it takes me so long to get the SWEM horses. What kind of person are you? Do you want to dive right into it and figure things out as it happens? Or do you want to be prepared? Let me know in the comments. I decided to keep the natural water pond and fill it in slightly. I did some terraforming, placed more fences, covered up a hole, cut out openings for the stalls, got some flowers to make grey dye because I would need a lot of gates. My sweet iron. It's fading. Day 28. I truly appreciated Benjamin's assistance. Since I need to go back and forth still, I also miscalculated a bit with the gates. Oops. I also finally checked what the gender of the new horse was. He was also a male, but that might change when he's turned to a SWEM horse. So I try not to name any more horses for now. Even if the name Banjo sneaked attacked my brain. I chopped down a lot more trees. This is something that I keep doing here and there since I always underestimate how much I need. I had to make a lot of fences. I then put down the final gates. I had finished placing down the first layer of fences. I would have to put another one above since I wanted it to be 2 blocks high just in case. After I was done, I went over my fence tool to adjust the height of the second layer, which would make it look less ridiculous. I placed some stone brick stairs to get up and down easier and repeated the process I had done in the pasture on the upper level. Of course, the phantoms were back. I swear, these guys have terrible diving skills. I was almost done for the day, but there was a witch, and since I had managed not to die yet, I was not risking it. Of all the mobs in Minecraft, witches are the biggest nope for me. Day 29. This feels familiar. After sneaking out of the house, Benjamin and I went back to the stable. With the witch gone, I made sure that there would be no more surprises like that again. So I made it harder for them to climb up the ravine. I also figured it was time to build a farm. So I cleared some land, made an infinite water source, and I had just gotten started with placing down water when I heard thunder. And you know what that means. Once again, I hid under the covers. Day 30. I took out my trusty hoe with mending on it. I had gotten this tool from my village early on, and I thought it was ridiculous that it had this enchantment, but at least I would have a tool that would never break, if I just took care of it. I hoed down the land as much as I could without breaking the tool. Then I planted some oat, timothy, and alfalfa seeds. I will have this tool in my offhand quite a bit in the coming days. I also harvested the little I could from the pre-made farm and started the process of removing it all. I then made a little wheat farm next to my house, since I would need to breed sheep and cows in the future. I fenced the area in and was quite pleased with it, even if it did look out of place. At the end of the day, I started to make a bad looking lamppost. Day 31. I had once again run out of stone, so I went and got some before completing the so-called lampposts. Yikes. This makes me miss the others I made way more. I crafted some grain feeders and placed one in each stall. I then dyed some half barrels in the colors I had done the tack boxes. Put up some lanterns around the place since I noticed mobs spawned quite a bit. I then tried to figure out where to place the water troughs in the stalls. Day 32. I made a plan. I felt really overwhelmed with all the land I had. Of course, I don't say no to having a lot of space. I just couldn't decide where I wanted things to be. I figured it would be a shame to remove the lava completely, since I might need it in the future if I need obsidian. I started to move it into the mountain after carving out a section, which took a while, since I want to make sure I got a good amount of it. I then covered the hole with cobble and tried not to step into lava that I accidentally forgot to cover. Then I started to clear a path to the stable that would lead to the house and marked where I wanted another horse pasture to be in the future. At the end of the day, Luke, Rayla, and I took out another Enderman, which gave us a pearl. I could finally make a water block. Day 33. I worked on the path from the house. Since the ground was rather uneven, I would have to fix it quite a bit. I tried to make the ground as even as possible where I wanted a pasture to be. I also terraformed away some dirt where the old pre-made farm had been, since this is where I wanted a barn for cows and sheep. I went back and forth, placing dirt and removing it. I saw a creeper close by when night fell, and I thought I could get a helper again to clear some dirt like back in the old days. I didn't think the zombie I saw on the minimap was a Satan spawn, aka a zombie kid. I swear, what is up with these kids and their attack pattern? It's so weird. From fighting a ton of mobs, being confident to almost being annihilated by a single zombie kid is quite embarrassing. It does not end there. It called for backup. Bushing phantoms. I whistled for Benjamin in haste to get away from this nightmare.
Ow!
Oh, that's bad. Oh, that's actually really bad. Oh, that stinks, bro. Day 34. I decided to kill off the pig that had been around my house for a while. I needed food. Okay, don't look at me like that. Benjamin and I went back to terraform the area for the barn. Lots of terraforming. I must have lost at least 3 or 4 shovels. I marked where I wanted the second pasture to be and shoveled my way to the stable, while trying to avoid a creeper. I marked where I wanted a round pen to be for training horses, ran away from a horde of skeletons, and collected some sand by the shoreline. Day 35. I finally made a water block. This beauty will give me a certain radius where I can get infinite water from a spigot, which is handy. I crafted some windows along with the spigots and headed off with Benjamin to the stable. This is when I realized the placement of the water trough would not work. So I moved it so I could attach the spigot on a wall surface. Then I placed the water block in the corridor's center of the stalls. Put down some shavings in the boxes, and I noticed that the wild horses had grown fond of Benjamin. Maybe these were some of his old friends. Day 36. I crafted the slow feeders for the stalls and tried to place them in a sensible way. I noticed it looked really weird, and I struggled on where I wanted them, since I was worried they might try to climb it in the future. Welp, I would have to find out the hard way. Some pillagers were staring at me from outside the stable. Apparently, I did not have a building permit. They didn't look so happy. I skedaddled and covered the hole where the lava used to be. Harvested the field for the first and last time in this section, since I wanted to move it close to the rest of the buildings. I then placed down some dirt around my house to even out the land more. I wanted to try and have the seeds layered, one at the bottom, another in the middle, and the top. But for now, I started with the top section. Day 37. I finally collected the Cantasserite potions from the brewing stand after them just sitting there forever. I knew before day 50 I wanted to have the horses turn into SWEM ones and start my journey with them for real. After cutting down a bunch of trees, I headed over to the barn building site, where I tried to figure out how to count to 22. Yes, I struggled and I still failed for some reason. The grass confused me, okay? At last, I put down the logs and the corner fences for the pens. My brain was not braining, so I just rolled with it. I made my dirt stairs and started to work on the roof, along with getting bullied by a zombie kid and his big brother, along with their skeleton uncle. Day 38. I spent all morning working on the roof and managed to complete it around midday. I then started to work on the inside of the barn. I wanted to have a small loft with barrels and hay bales for easy access to breed animals. As I was placing the blocks, I thought to myself, this section is really dark. I sure hope a creeper won't spawn. What do you think spawned the moment I leave and come back? A creeper, like the bush of all the mobs. It had to be a creeper. I finished the upper section with placing down some barrels and adding extra blocks while trying to have a dance with a skeleton that sniped me through a window. Day 39. I put down the fences for the 2 separate pens. Benjamin was just chilling on the unfinished wall. I got some more stone, made a couple windows, and harvested some of my wheat to make some bread, but also hay bales. I put down stone bricks in the barn corridor, but I missed 2, of course. Every time, bro. I placed some lights and remembered there was a window in the hayloft as well. I tried to experiment what doors to use for the pens, but everything I tried looked ridiculous. I thought I figured out a design that looked alright, but this would be proven to be wrong later on. Day 40. I went off with Benjamin to gather the sheep that was nearby. That was apparently stuck under a tree this entire time. I put them in their separate pen and went off to get the cows. That wasn't a hole. I let one of the cows out, but I also didn't realize how deep the hole was. There is no way I'm going to drown under my home again. Been there, done that. I had managed to survive all this time so far. I was not going to be an idiot. Also, the bisons had migrated over to this side, and it made me anxious. I took 3 cows with me back to the barn, hoping at least one of them would be female. They started to stand on the log block, and I saw that the gate design wouldn't work. So I took this ugly thing instead as a solution. Cheers! At the end of the night, I heard a loud noise. I panicked for a moment, but I figured it might have been a music disc. The song sounded really good, and I was curious. I dug underground and spotted a culprit, a zombie that had a backpack. There was also a creeper that I tried not to pay attention to. I killed off the zombie, but no luck. All I got was a broken leather helmet. Oh, and yeah, the creeper blew up. Of course. I tamed the horses that had said hi to Benjamin a couple days prior and brought them inside the stable. 2 of them were stallions/geldings, and 1 was a mare, at least for now. Soon, they will be turning to SWEM horses, and I was both excited and nervous for the future. One of the horses even reminded me of Balthazar from my previous 100 days. Day 41. I fed the cows and sheep and started to prepare the area for more seeds to be planted next to my house, along with doing a quick harvest of the crops. As I was planting, I heard another thunderstorm, and the moment I heard it strike down close by me, I ran to my bed and noped out. Another day wasted. Day 42. I wanted to go back down into the mines the previous day, but I had to change my plans because, well, the thunderstorm. I went down to the caves and started to mine away. Of course, after killing some mobs, I have found so much iron, and this cave system is truly massive. I did get sort of lost at some point and had to just roll with it. I found some pretty glow squids just casually swimming, and as I was just mining away, chilling, vibing, I was thinking of climbing up the way I'd entered this new section. Well, day 43 was not a good start. Yo. Nope. Nope. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Just nope. I'm out of here, thank you. That was the scariest thing I've seen so far. Holy schnitzels. That was a giant centipede and all I knew was that it did not look friendly. I had to panically dig my way out on another path. So not only was I even more lost than earlier, but I managed to find some more iron as well. So win-win, I guess. I followed my exit marker and managed to find my way back to the entrance. Just one problem. A witch was guarding it and threw a random potion at me. Rude. I mean, at least it wasn't poison. I managed to lure her down, go around so I could cross, and lighted the section a bit more just in case before leaving the caves. I smelted all my ores back home and made some more western fences to prepare for the next project. It was time to build the round pen. Day 44. I finally made some beds for the dogs. But also for some reason, an Enderman snuck inside the house. So I asked my dogs for assistance. We also got another ender pearl, so yay! I don't say no. The bisons really had started to fully move to this side. So me and the dogs took care of one that was right where I wanted to work. They had no problem with that at all. Dang, the dogs are so OP. I started to terraform the land of where I wanted a round pen. This would be used for when I would be training or riding the horses. Spoilers, I pretty much only used this place once or twice. I managed to place down some of the fences before the next morning. Day 45. I finished placing down the fences and realized I had to make way more than I thought I needed. Yes, I know it's not a round pen per se, but it's close enough. I made some lanterns, and while I was waiting for the kelp to dry, I started to work on the second floor of the house. After making some western poles and barrels, I headed off to round pen and placed them in a way I thought would work for the horses. Day 46. I tried to run the barrels with Benjamin. Let's just say I forgot how to do it for a moment. I then placed down some coarse dirt that I had made with some gravel and dirt to place around the pen to make it a little more interesting, along with shoveling the area. I realized it looked really flat with just two textures, so I also placed down some regular dirt to make it pop a little more. Rattle helped me take out some of the cows since I needed leather to make refined leather. I would need this for the horse's tack in the future. I also managed to finish the basic layout of the upper floor in my house. Day 47. I was adoring the cute baby sheep as I was gathering wool for the tack. Made a refined leather with the help from my infinite water source next to the crops and started to craft the different tack and items I thought the SWEM horses might need. This took all day. I tried to put dye on the sheep, but sadly the livestock models don't really appreciate being dyed. I noticed that it was too dark in the round pen, which I had suspected, so I just threw in a random light in its center. Another zombie came over that had a backpack, and he actually dropped it. Was nothing interesting in it though. Day 48. I was still on a hunt for dye, and I kept seeing so many horses around in the area, and regular cows and sheep that had their vanilla look, and one that was super goofy. You look like my face. I gotta stop insulting myself. I had managed to craft most of the essentials for the future SWEM horses, but this is something that I had to work on for the remaining day. I crafted some quality bales, got my Cantasserite potions, and it was almost time to change the horses into SWEM ones. I filled up all the feeders and brought in the horses in their stalls, and tomorrow would be the day. Day 49. I had my 6 potions locked and loaded. I had a pep talk with my doggies and Benjamin before heading over to the stable with my Cantasserite anvil, along with some name tags. Benjamin, my sweet Benjamin. It was this moment I knew I pushed up, and that I would come to regret this decision of changing him forevermore. This SWEM horse was now a mare, so I would have to come up with a different name for her. I went and got the next horse, and this stallion turned out to also be a mare. Also, another grey horse. They were really bugged without a doubt. Also, I have nothing against mares. I'm only good with male names. The third one that was originally a mare turned into a stallion, so this would become the new Benjamin. And of course, it was once again a grey. So, I took out my redstone and lapis and started to have a look through the coats. I honestly hate that you need these resources to change the coats, but it is what it is. I decided to name the second stallion I got Balthazar, since they had looked like the one from my previous 100 days, and the chestnut one became Benjamin. Sadly, I couldn't really look through the coats too much since I didn't have much redstone left. Who knows, maybe I will change some of them in the future. The last horse I tamed turned out to be also a mare. So now, instead of having originally 4 stallions and 1 mare, I now had 2 stallions and 3 mares. Which changed everything. Day 50. I finally had tamed all of the horses and given them a name each. I was going to take Balthazar back to the stable when I realized the sad truth. That they can't walk through the western doors. Oh, so sad. I genuinely liked these doors too. I quickly kept Balthazar moving when I saw him sneak eating some grass and took him inside. I decided to keep the western doors for the stalls, since they were mainly for me anyway. I had to quickly run and get a flower to get light grey dye so I could make a 2-block gate. Of course, I fell in a hole during this process. I managed to get all the horses back to the stable, but I realized it seemed really cramped for some reason. I also changed Autumn's coat into another one before they all went to sleep. I filled the feeders up in the back pasture and did another harvest of the crops. Day 51. I was still gathering the crops in the pouring rain. Made some quality bales and started to collect some red poppies that I could use to make the red tag for Calliope. Since she was currently the only one that didn't have a set of items. I planted a tree in the back pasture to give Calliope some cover after moving her in there while putting on her halter and pasture blanket. Then I proceeded to bind the tag boxes to all of the horses. My plan was to move some of them to another section in the future. I would just have to build it. I also realized how much running it was from my house to the stable. I wish I could have a bicycle or something. I checked the health on all the horses, and the mares was struggling to drink. So I just hoped they would figure it out eventually. I took in the warmth from the sunrise, with Rayla by my side, hoping I could finally go for my first ride soon. Day 52. I dashed to the stable and saw that Benjamin and Balthazar drank from the same trough, in the same stall. I made sure the horses had food and water and zoomed in on Calliope from afar to see if she was fine. I did feel bad leaving her alone like this, but I hoped it wouldn't be for too long. I took out Benjamin 2.0 for his very first ride in the round pen. Did some barrels and pole work. I do very much dislike how they shoot up fireworks every time you pass them though. I just wanted to take this day and enjoy it. But a part of me was just empty. I'm not going to lie. I could not record anymore right after this day. I was just so empty and sad. It was so bad I had to close the game. The moment I turned the livestock horses into SWEM ones, I just shattered. I missed Benjamin. This Benjamin I was riding was not the same. Then again, for some reason, I kept calling the old Benjamin Dominic. So, lol. Both of the horse models have their charm. But I had had Benjamin since day 7. So when I changed him, it felt like I killed the essence that was him. Yes, I am emotional over a pixel horse. I am just going to water the plants with my tears real quick. The truth is, the SWEM horses have always felt like a chore to me. But I think the main problem was that I had now 5 horses, when I planned for 4. And I had no idea what the next day would bring. I thought I was ready, prepared everything to the last detail. Turns out, I was not ready. And I would need to come up with a solution to be able to move on. Man, is it just me, or a horse leveling or carrying system mod that could be compatible with the Dragon's Livestock overhaul would be so epic. Day 53. My solution was to get myself a new livestock horse. Honestly, I needed the help. The running was too much for my legs. I skipped leg day, people. I really wish I could bike to the stable though. I looked near the animal barn where I had seen one horse at some point, but it was now nowhere to be found. Except it was. Yep, I didn't see it on the minimap until I checked the recording. Oops. As I thought that horse was long gone, I kept on looking and feared that there was no longer any Mustangs around the area. I went to the stable and changed one of the mare's names to Roseus. After that was done, I went to the other side of the stable and I spotted another horse I had seen during the days when I was building the pasture where Calliope currently was roaming. I tamed the new horse, and her name became Star. I had already picked this name beforehand since it was gender neutral, so I knew it would work regardless. I placed down some blocks to mark where I wanted a second stable that would be for the geldings/stallions, aka Benjamin and Balthazar, and changed Roseo's coat to a different one, since I was unhappy with the one I had selected. I also started on the chicken coop. I figured it was about time. I also finally added railings to the upper level of my house and the stairs. Day 54. I killed off a wandering winemaker who had mules with him. Sadly, they were not the livestock kind, which made me super sad. I noticed early on that the trader was also bugged in this matter, since his llamas was also very vanilla. I spent the majority of the day working on the chicken coop and cutting down trees, along with riding Star back and forth between the 2 points. I tried to play with the wood a little bit on this build, since I had grown tired of the same old vibe. Day 55. I finished the full shell of the chicken coop and started to work on the details, adding some lanterns, replacing the ground with some hay bales underneath the nests, and remove the grass, while adding some trap doors inside of the coop, and was fighting with the western saloon gates when the rain started to pour down and the thunder was dancing in the sky. I once again had to surrender and run to bed. Day 56. I remembered I had a responsibility as a horse owner that I should probably check on the horses on my horse ranch. So I filled up their water troughs and put down some quality bales for them to munch on, and it struck me that I should probably make a hoose. So that's what I did. I had checked the health on all the horses, and to my surprise, Calliope was doing the worst. She had the most space, a lot of food and water, and she was still not happy. What the actual bush? I decided to place down 2 water troughs down in the pasture as well, just in case. I then went to find some chickens to take back to the coop. I managed to find 2 of them, and luckily they were the opposite genders, so that was excellent. I fed them some seeds and got fertilized eggs. I threw them on the ground and out came tiny little chickens and, well, yeah, okay. It's just like, nope, I'm just gonna go over. Come back in. Oh, that's so freaking funny. It was like, nope, I don't want to be here. Yeah, they just walked right over that. Oops. So I altered the design slightly and it became so much better. I then killed off a creeper that was stalking my next project, my stable for the boys. And I decided to alter the design compared to the first one quite a bit. Day 57. I placed down a majority of the blocks and my boots broke that I had for ages. So I decided to make a new pair of them that matched my gear. I placed down the fences around the stable for the pasture area and realized way too late that the building was not even and was one block off on one side. At least it was just one side. Day 58. I more or less just removed the last blocks to move them one step to the side. I was pretty happy with the design I had gone for and continued replacing down the last wall pieces and removed the ground inside the build that I would replace with some stone running bond. I filled in the stalls with a medium rubber mat. Yes, I don't like the shade, but I had a lot of grey dye, so I just went with it. It was definitely not a mistake that I regret to this day. It would mainly be covered by shavings anyway. Day 59. With the floor finished, I put down some stall sliding doors at the entrance and some stall doors I had made by accident in the past. I did know they would become handy one day though. This is why I am such an item hoarder. I went to check on the horses to see how they were doing. I knew I wanted to take one of them out for a ride at some point, but the problem was I had no reason to go anywhere. Everything I wanted and needed was right here. I brushed all the horses and made sure they had food and water, replaced the shavings, and kindly asked Balthazar to step aside. And the Calliope was doing worse. This mare was trouble, but I knew the faster I finished the boys' new stable, the quicker she would be up in one of the pens. I spread out the water troughs a little more, hoping it would make a difference. I bred the chickens once again and oh my god, look at all these fertilized eggs! My goodness, so many chickens! I did learn that you could turn the livestock eggs into regular ones if you just put them into the crafting menu. Oh, I wish I had known that in my first 100 days. I made my very first sweet feed and filled up the grain feeders in the stalls along with putting the rest down in the grain bin. I then started to work on the roof for the second stable. Day 60. I adjusted the fence of the chicken coop since I noticed it was uneven. Then I proceeded to finish working on the roof, along with filling in the gaps with some blocks. Of course, phantoms started to hover over me again. From being 1 to becoming 3, I said nope and went to bed. Well, after they pushed me inside. Quite a lot of them, I don't want to bother. I'm out. Day 61. I put down some windows on the upper layer of the second stable and realized it was not aligned with the entrance. Whoopsies. Of course, I like this stable more than my first. Why? Good question. I think it's just because I like smaller buildings. At night, I put down some logs to act as beams between the stalls. I went to check on the horses, made some more bales, and I slowly started to take the boys' things, since it was almost time for them to move to their new home. I decided that the main stable would be for the mares, since there was more of them. I kept thinking I wanted to have a foal, since that way the coat would most likely not turn out to be a plain grey. I would have to find some rose bushes to be able to make this happen though, because I would need the rose feed. Day 62. I put in Calliope's things in a stall and grabbed the remaining things that belonged to the boys. I decided to tack up Benjamin and Pony Balthazar. Since it had been a while since I had ridden any of the horses, but I also thought it could be fun. As we walked down the path, I just knew he were going to kick. I can't blame him though. We trotted over in a slow pace, and I tied Benjamin up outside while taking Balthazar in his stall. I put down the water block in the stable's center and gave Balthazar food and water. Once again, I realized the flaws with my stall design and had to adjust it a bit to place a spigot above the troughs. I then took Benjamin inside, and after a while, he walked inside his new home. My plan is to build another structure like this between the two current stables. That way I can take care of the horses while heading from point A to point B. I decorated a tiny space with placing down the boys' things, jumped over a spider with Star since I didn't see the guy. At the end of the day, I finally removed the dirt I had used to climb to the roof. Day 63. I made another wheelbarrow, did a light path to the back field and added some stone brick stairs. I would have to expand this field even further in the future though. I have too many horses. I harvested the crops, planted some sugar canes and figured the horses couldn't even get out of their stall. But when I let Benjamin out, he just didn't want to leave. I can relate, buddy. I filled the grain bins with sweet feed and went to check on the mares. But when I was going to bring Calliope inside, I saw there was a bison with her. I don't remember owning a bison. I asked Luke and Sadie to give me a hand. Even if they might not be hostile, I still didn't want to risk it. I also discovered that doggies could eat raw bison meat. I dragged Calliope up the stairs into her pen and questioned myself why the bush I had a gate in such a weird place. Oh well. I put down the lanterns I had made earlier in the new stable, and the skeleton burned up right before it had a chance to shoot me. Day 64. I tried to take care of some enderman that was below me. I was hoping he would have dropped a pearl. Sadly, no luck with that one. I then went back to what I originally was going to do, and that was to expand the upper crop field. Since I would need a lot of food for the horses in the future, I put down the water in the same pattern as previously and planted as many seeds as I could. In reality, I wanted to do more, but I didn't want to break my hoe that had mending on it. At night, I magically remembered where I had covered up the path down to the Enderman earlier. I was shocked to say the least. I saw there was another one down there, so I took my shot, stared him dead in the eye, only for it not to move. Yeah, he was stuck. But hey, easy kill for me. The rest of the day I checked on the horses to make sure they had everything they needed. Day 65. I took out Benjamin from his stall and tied him up outside. It was finally time for a little journey. It would not be too far, but I wanted to get some roses in preparation for the future fall that I had already started to plan for, mark the destination where we were headed, and we were off. It was going to be around 1,000 meters back and forth, which wasn't too far for our first time away from the ranch. And just like that, there was a ton of flowers before us. The roses was near some grizzly bears though, so I was looking to see if there was any other nearby. I did manage to get some, well, while jumping at a bison zooming out of nowhere. I grabbed as many flowers as I could before heading back. Benjamin wasn't a fan of galloping whatsoever. I can't blame him though. I haven't even trained him a lot. Eventually, he galloped for the first time and even jumped over some logs. As I put his tack away, the thought crossed my mind that I really should make more tack for the other horses in the future. I did a quick evening check on the horses and spent the majority of the night cutting down trees and placed down lights in the new project area. Day 66. I put down spruce logs for the third stable build. This would be a training stable of some sort. The horses I would have in training would live here. This also includes foals. Now, originally I wanted to build it the same way as the second stable, but somewhere along the way I decided to alter the design and make something slightly different, which was super fun in the end. Instead of 2 small stalls, it would be 2 bigger ones in case I want to have a mother and her foal in here in the future. I wanted to have a small training pen for the horses to get used to different items and go through sanitation training. At night, I finally added something extra to the paths around the property, since I had grown tired of the plainness. When Phantom spawned, I decided I could sleep for once. Day 67. I finished putting down the plank pathing all around the current connecting points. Put down the fence for the mini training pen. I also saw that I would need more dried kelp to be able to craft some of the sanitation items. So, I set out with Star since it was getting late. Normally, I would never venture into the ocean at this hour, but hey, duty calls. As I jumped into the water, I saw a stray orca, and the achievement, Free Willy, put a smile on my face since I remembered the movie. I'm not going to lie, I was terrified while swimming next to the orca. Not only because it was super close to me, or that it was so late, but it seemed like it was giving me an effect of some sort. I wasn't sure if it was a buff or debuff. All I know is that this guy loved being around me. And then there was me, who did everything not to punch him by accident as I was gathering kelp, hoping he would not harm me in the slightest. After getting a little over a stack, I swam to safety and called Star to my side to head back home. Well, after Star almost got demolished by sweetberry bushes. Anyone else who hate these? No, just me. Okay. Day 68. I made a couple of different sanitation tools after quickly looking after the boys. I then tried to use them on them. I didn't know they would kick like that. So I'm glad I decided to do this across the fence. This only made me like the idea of the training pen even further. Eventually, they both got used to it and it seemed like all of the items affected the same thing. I then went to check the health on the mares, and Calliope either still didn't understand the concept of drinking water, or 2, she was still recovering from her past. After doing some marking out, I added some texturing to the ground of the mini training pen, since it looked flat and boring. I then made 2 small pens that would be connected to their respective stalls. Day 69. I was quite happy with the shape of them since they curved nicely next to the small training pen. I cut down a lot of trees and planted some more before placing a pole jump in the training pen. I wanted my horses to get accustomed to everything in the future. I considered for a second to make another stable similar to this one on the opposite side of the pen, since it will look nice with the symmetry and really feel like a training center. Hey, maybe I will if I continue after this 100 days. Want to see me do a 200 days in this world? Let me know in the comments. During the night, I filled in most of the walls for the third stable. I wanted to make it slightly different to the one I had built previously. Did I regret that choice? No. Would I in the future? Only time could tell. Day 70. I started to finally work on the roof. It's funny. I used to hate doing roofs, but the moment I figured out how to do it, it actually became more fun. Well, minus when I break my legs. Luckily, I have insurance. I checked on Balthazar and Benjamin before seeing how the mares were doing. For once, Calliope was the one that was doing amazingly. I also checked the pasture behind the barn to make sure it didn't have any, new Bison family members. As the sun was setting, I made a huge harvest of all the crops behind my house. And as I was about to keep expanding the land, a phantom dived at me yet again. I tried to fend it off while taking care of the land and the zombie. After that mess was cleared, I finished my harvest and said hi to Rayla as I sorted some of my items. Day 71. I was still sorting my items. Yes, we love doing this. It's the most thrilling thing we can do in Minecraft. So of course, I had to push it until this point to even bother doing so. I was just minding my own business when I heard pillagers attacking the house. I asked my friends for help and within seconds, there were no more. And I happily went to sleep. Well, I was more shaken than anything. Not only because of the attack, but also because of the thunder that rolled in. For the 4th time. Day 72. I asked Rayla to come with me since another pillager was sneaking outside of the house. He must have heard what happened to his friends and wanted to seek revenge. I took him down and decided to keep Rayla with me for the rest of the day, since the dogs haven't really been able to be with me that much. And since the dogs could eat bison meat, I decided it was finally time to deal with the ones that kept creeping closer to our property. After that was over, I went to check on the horses, starting with the mares. I continued my work on the 3rd stable, while also becoming a lumberjack for the remaining of the night. Day 73. I put down the flooring for the 3rd stable and kept on working on the roof, while being frustrated, since I kept placing the blocks wrong. By night, the general shape of the roof was finished. At least the rain will not find its way in anymore. I made a couple of windows before the sunlight seeped in through the window. Day 74. I checked on the horses before getting back to work on the 3rd stable. I also removed some of the gates from the mares, since I noticed they sometimes got stuck on them. After getting some progress done and the night fell, I went back to check on the horses again, since I want to see how their health was doing. They were not doing the greatest, but it could also have been worse. I crafted all the horsey items that was needed for the 3rd stable and made my way over again with Star. Day 75. I did some remodeling of my previous design, since I wanted to be able to hang up items but also have the spigot function over the water troughs. I put down all the items on both sides, placing them wrong multiple times. Oops. Made a water block and put it in the center of the build. I then went over to shed the sheep to get some wool so I could get more string for the quality bales. I have a hate-love relationship with the SWEM mod without a doubt. Filled all the feeders before moving on to the tack and storage section. This is the main reason I made the overhang in this section. I decided to go with a grey theme for everything, since it was a neutral color. But the equipment was also for any horse that trained here. I did a final check on the horses before the next morning. Day 76. I made some sweet feed, while remembering I didn't have any doors yet on the 3rd stable. I knew I forgot something. I went to check on the mares and saw that they had forgotten to drink. I decided to move the water trough a bit closer to them just in case. I then took Roseos with me to the 3rd stable. It was finally time to properly introduce her and Benjamin, since I decided a long time ago that I wanted to breed them together. After she was settled, I went over to grab Benjamin and, of course, I accidentally right-clicked with my axe on a wood log. How often has this happened to you guys? Me? Too many bushing times. I led them both out to the tiny little pen and fed them the rose feed. And just like that, Roseos was pregnant. 30 minutes. That is roughly 1 to 2 days in Minecraft, depending on if you sleep or not. I just hoped I wouldn't miss the false birth. I took Benjamin to the other side, since he was technically a horse in training. I say that, even though I only ridden him 3 times. And I finally made more tack. I despise the tack making process, hence why I've pushed it so far. But the training stable needed it, so it was time to buckle down and do it. Day 77. I finished crafting all of the tack and went to the third stable, that is now officially the training one, to put it all up. I also put down some leaves around the training pen to make it a little bit more interesting. Then I just placed a ton of leaves all around the building. I had been thinking of doing this for a while on all my builds. This would only be the beginning of leaf paradise. Day 78. I was cutting down some trees when I got an achievement. Yay for baby horses. I had missed the birth of the foal. Schnitzels! I dashed over to start in excitement to see the baby. She was a gorgeous little black filly. I knew she wouldn't look like that when she got older though. Yet the name Eclipse still rang in my ears. And I knew that was the name she was going to have no matter what. After staring at the baby, I took care of a wild wandering trader. Man, I really think they need a raise. They don't get paid enough. And for some reason, I could not place this gate for the life of me. No matter what angle or precision, I could not be in the dead center. I have no idea if there was a visible wall somewhere blocking it, but I spent half of the day trying to make this work. In the end, it could be put down slightly to the side, so I just went with that. I was shaking my head so hard in utter confusion. Day 79. I wanted to add some water inside the training pen, since I figured it's something that horses are taught as well. I decided to place the water underneath the pole. After checking on Roseus and her baby and Benjamin, I continued my leaf planting all around the buildings. Next on the list was the barn. I don't know why I love leaves all around buildings. I guess I like the overgrown aesthetic, but also to cover up my ugly builds. When the rain cleared, I admired the view of my work, but noticed how ridiculous it looked with the top leaves floating like that, so I fixed it. I took Roseus and her baby into the training pen, where I introduced them both to the hitching post, while brushing them and using a pom-pom. I wanted the baby to have her mom with her, so she could show her how it's done. I then walked Roseus around the training pen to show her baby that it was nothing to be afraid of, and let her have a little walk around before taking them both back to the pen. Then, I looked away for 1 second, and just like that, the baby was now an adult. Gosh, they grow up so fast. I want to say that she is a blue roan with white socks and a bald face, but I could be wrong here. I was surprised though that she had similar markings to Balthazar, and they were not even related. I went back to the house and made her name tag straight away. Welcome to the family, Eclipse. Day 80. The moment they become an adult, it's time for the hard work. I wanted to go on a ride and train Eclipse straight away. I did want to take care of all the horses first though. Of course, the universe had other plans. Rain? Again? Really? Come on, man. Day 81. It was finally time to take Eclipse for her very first full day of training. This place has truly started to become a horse ranch. Eclipse became extremely special to me, since she was my very first foal. But also because she was my first training project. And she looked so good in the gear. We did some walk and trot around the different objects and obstacles in both directions. This pen was not big enough to canter in, so we did some trot jumping over the pole water jump. She did refuse once, so we stood there for a second, so she could process what just happened. After that, we went over to the big roundish pen, where we trotted around first, so she could get used to the place while asking for her first canter. She moved with such grace in both leads, and this made me realize that I should probably make a training pen for jumps, or at least have a cross-country section. Who knows? Maybe I will do that in the future some point. Oh, never mind. I just remembered, I have a natural one across the river. After the session, we cooled off back to a training stable. Maybe I should just call it training center. Ugh, names. I put her tag where it belonged, gave her a good brush, and used my pom-pom to mark the end of the session. And before I took her back to her pen, I made sure she had lots of food and water. Day 82 to day 85, I worked on an expansion of the crop field behind the house. It was time to finally make my vision come to life. I also put down leaves all around in different sections to fence them in, but mainly to make it more interesting. Of course, I checked on the horses here and there during the days. I planted some seeds. It was an absolute nightmare. Day 86. I planted the last of my seeds and it was officially done. I decided to have oats and wheat at the bottom level, timothy in the middle and the alfalfa at the top. At the end of the day, I put down more leaves on the house to mark the outside as complete. Day 87. It was finally time to take Eclipse out for her second ride and do some cross-country for the first time. The best part? Like I mentioned earlier, I didn't even need to build the jumps. They were pretty much already naturally there. We trotted the majority of the way and cantered for a good while to stretch her legs before it was time to jump over some logs. I did have to make some adjustments, since the trees were either in the way or the logs was in a dangerous spot. Eclipse didn't seem very keen with the jumping either. There was a lot of rearing and bucking on her end, but she was really enjoying jumping over the water. We were at it until it got dark, and at some point I was thinking that it was probably best to head back before a creeper would spawn in our face. After a lot of refusals, we cleared one final jump, and I decided that she had done such a good job, so we swam back to the property. I untacked her, I put her in her pen, and started to shave a bunch of leaves. It was time to start my next project. Day 88. I headed over to the top of the crop fields and started on placing down some stone stairs. This section I wanted to have a small apple tree orchard. I had planned this since the beginning, but I was either pushing it aside or thinking I had more important things to deal with. Which I did. I outlined the new area with the leaves and placed down some spruce trapdoors to see roughly where I wanted them to be and how much space I would give them. After being happy with it, I bone mealed one tree and said nope right away. They were definitely too close to one another. I also thought it was a tiny bit too short, so I tried to place a dirt block underneath to see if that would help. At night, I had figured out where I wanted the trees to be and managed to get a variation in sizes. Day 89. I did some light pathing to the orchard and inside of it, to make it look more appealing. I then made myself some cooked rice. Yes, I was tired of living only on bread. I needed some variation in my diet. At the end of the day, I checked on the horses, starting with Balthazar and Benjamin, along with Eclipse. All the way over to Calliope, Roseus, and Autumn. Made sure that they had all the food and water they needed. And of course that the spaces were cleaner than usual. Then I grabbed more leaves and headed to the first stable to finally place the last leaves on my builds. Day 90. I was going strong with the leaf placements. I tried to have in a wavy sort of vines kind of look to it. Honestly, I can't decide if I hate it or not. Probably hate it. All of this took most of the day to complete, but when it was done, I was finally feeling that the build was truly finished. As the sun was starting to set, I finally wanted to tackle the jacaranda trees that I had at the front. I want to sort of custom build them and have some at the side. I did the same method as I had done with the apple trees and did some shaping with some leaves, but other than that, I try not to change too much. Day 91. As the morning greeted me, I had just started to work on the last tree and I thought the front of my house looked a little boring. So I grabbed all the flowers from the little adventure I had with Benjamin many days ago and placed them all around in front of the house. After that, I sighed deeply and headed down to the mines. I thought I didn't have to do this again during these 100 days. But here I am again, going down into the depths of despair to find more iron. Ugh. It went relatively well. I did find a lot of iron and even some coal. I even tactically chopped down gravel to give me cover from a skeleton arrow. Gaming skills! Day 92 rolled around and for some reason, I had stopped pressing record. Sort of. You see, if you stop a recording and start it really quickly, sometimes Streamlabs just says, "Bush you," and ignores your commands. I am its god. It should obey my every whim. But oh well, long story short, I had been mining some iron and a centipede had snuck around the corner and jump scared me. And as I had dug my way to safety, I realized I wasn't recording. Ha! At least you guys don't have to see that horror. After getting some more iron, I started to dig my way back to the surface, since, yet again, because of the centipede had made me lost my sense of direction, and I couldn't go back the same way I came from. All I could do was follow my exit marker. Back on the surface, I smelted all my iron, made multiple lanterns, and realized I could have saved so much iron if only I had made a tavern lantern. This one uses only 4 iron nuggets instead of 8. Man, that was a punch in the gut. I placed them all around the property, and also I was offended why I couldn't place a lantern on a leaf bush. Sad smiley. Of course, I was casually minding my own business. That I didn't see the creeper that was hiding behind Star, and the moment I went past her, the creeper exploded. Luckily, she wasn't injured, but my flowers died. Hey, just as fast as my real-life plants does. As I was trying to patch up the hole, a phantom attacked me, and for once, I was gonna let them bully me, so I took care of it while putting the dirt down. Day 93. I checked on the horses, finally replaced the torches I had over at the main stable with lanterns. I was short on a couple of them, so instead of heading down to my usual cave, I went down the one that was next to stable for a change. It was not much, but there was enough iron there to satisfy my needs for now. There was a way to head down into the abyss, but I didn't have a death wish, so I went back as soon as I grabbed the ones I could see. Day 94. I tacked up Benjamin for a change, since not only did I want to spend a few days with him, but I also want to have him help me in refining the cross-country course, along with making sure he got some exercise. I didn't want to change too much, but I knew that I would have to go back and forth with this process. I also added some leaves to the sides of some of the logs and other things to make them a little more interesting. As I got overwhelmed by zombies and skeletons in the darkness, I decided it was time to take Benjamin back home. The rain was pouring when we got back to the stable, and I quickly removed his tag and put on his blanket, along with his halter before taking him back to his little pen. I spent the rest of the night adding a dining table and some chairs downstairs in my house, to make the place look less barren. Day 95. I went upstairs and started to work on the bedroom section. Now, I advise everyone to avert their gaze from this horrific view. It was so bad that I accidentally escaped through the roof and ran away from all my problems to check on the horses instead, avoiding it at all costs, with doing a harvest to get everyone some more food and grilling the sheep, asking them some wool. I really didn't want to go back there. Day 96. I did what every other person would do. Procrastinate until the end. I thought it was better to go back to the cross-country area and finish that instead, since that was a bit more fun. I tacked off Benjamin once again and off we went. He was full of energy today. I had to constantly hold him back since he kept wanting to canter. When we arrived, there was still quite a lot of terraforming that had to be done. I wanted to try and keep the logs in their current position. Of course, I knew this would not be possible with every single one. I used the fuel logs to mark as a gateway of some sort to the next jumps, in case I would get a bit lost. After placing down some lanterns on some of the logs, Benjamin leapt over a log before we went back home. I also noticed that Eclipse had missed to drink some water, so I wanted to keep an eye on her on the last days. Day 97. You guessed it. Benjamin and I went straight back to the cross-country area the next morning. I felt that it was more or less done, so I wanted to have Benjamin give it a go for real and see if he would enjoy it or not. So far, he has only tried to do Western once or twice. He had liked that quite a bit, so I wondered if jumping would be something he enjoyed too. I let him stretch his legs with a nice gallop before approaching the first log, and yeah, he said nope. I have noticed with the SWEM horses that sometimes they can be very eager to jump, even if they have no skill in it, and some just bucks or rears a lot. So far, Eclipse have been the worst out of the two horses I have ridden so far. It took some time for Benjamin to let loose and jump the log confidently, but he managed to jump a couple of them in a row. I was very proud of him for doing this, and I knew I was asking a lot of him. I haven't really been riding him much, and honestly, looking back, I wished I had spent more time riding my horses. But, as the saying goes, better late than never. Once again, I went back home, and I was a little unsure if Benjamin had really enjoyed it or not. At least the time I had spent with him in his new form had meant a lot to me. Day 98. It was finally time to take the bull by the horn. Rip the band-aid off. I had to go back to the monstrosity that was my bedroom. In the end, it did look good. No, not even close. But at least it didn't look so empty anymore. I see that as a win. Okay, I'm just bad at building in general. Don't look at me. And yes, this tragedy took all day. I even noticed I had pushed something up at the top when I first made the roof. So I had to fix that as well. Glad I saw it before it was too late at least. Day 99. I ran to the stable and grabbed Eclipse. It was time for my very last ride before the time was up. And I wanted to do it with her. We took the same way as I'd done previously with Benjamin. This girl is stunning, and I love how she moves. After doing a good gallop across the field, we plopped over the first jump, and she refused a couple of times here and there, jumped another one, and it was really a back and forth with this one. But in the middle of our session, she cleared multiple jumps in a row, and as I had been with Benjamin, I was so proud of her. She did still buck and rear a lot. Maybe the jumps were a bit too high for her still, to be honest. Then again, I think I'm the problem. It was already dark when we headed back home to the property. I took a glance at my first stable before turning Eclipse in for the night. I checked all the horses one final time before saying goodnight for the last time. Day 100 was now upon me, and oh my gosh, it is the second time I have ever reached to this point, and all I can say is, I have a hate-love relationship with this world. Did I regret getting so many horses early on? Yes. Did I regret building everything so far apart? Oh, 100%. Do I wish I had ridden the horses more? Of course I do. Even so, I was super proud of myself for doing this again. Not only did I make it to 100 days, but I also didn't die. Yep, not a single bushing time. Now that is a win in my book. To say my goodbyes to this world, I took Star and placed her together with Balthazar. He had been alone long enough, And Star had been, well, such a star, and helped me out for almost 50 days. She deserved a break. I walked around the property, feeling a sense of accomplishment. In the beginning, I had no idea what I was doing. There was a giant lava pool where the third stable now is, aka the training center. No fields of crops, no orchard, no buildings. Horses, well, technically they were always here, but you know what I mean. And before the sun set, I took all the mares out, down to the huge paddock below their stable. They deserve to roam in a bigger space and have a good night together. With all my dogs by my side, looking at the horses, I felt at peace. Well, I honestly felt this everywhere I looked at this point. I made myself some apple cider, sat down at my new dining table, and drank my glass. I hung up my armor, and then I bid this world and you all farewell. At least, for now. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and thank you for the support on my very first 100 days. It really means the world to me. And I want to keep making these videos in the future. I love Minecraft, and I already have more ideas planned for future content in this game. But also, I might continue in this world. So my question to you all is, any suggestions on what I can build to improve the property? Do you want to see me do a 200 days in this world? Do let me know in the comments. But yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Bye! Schnitzels.